From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, joined by my dear friend on the line.
The hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV, you're truly Hector Bosa.
Well, we also have Kenny Graham on the other side of the glass. Kenny, unfortunately, I'm unable to hear him in the studio here. Is there any way that we could bring him up? We're going to see if we can patch him
get
through.
A girl.
How about now?
That's one way to get me up. Give me another girl.
You know, when are we going to stop with this charade?
Listen. Stop acting so damn jealous.
I'm not jealous of you. I keep on telling you I ain't jealous of you.
All you're doing is
I'm not jealous of a liar.
And everything else, and I'm trying to get to sports. I'm just
well, so am I.
Truth. I'm not lying. Who says I'm lying?
Me.
Yeah. Well, who are you? How do you
I
know?
don't see you with anybody.
You just been jealous all this time about
No,
me.
I have not been jealous. I've been calling you out. You a liar. You a liar. You a sham. You a joke.
Good God Almighty, man.
You a joke.
You're gonna get a text from your wifey there and saying to calm down. So let me ask you something.
At least I have a wifey.
Good. I'm glad you got one. I got
the only thing you have is bug repellent.
I got more than one.
The only thing you have
because I got more than one.
Real men only need one. Jerk.
For God's sake, man, this is a sports show. Now let's talk about sports, for God's sake.
That's what I've been trying to do before you started lying.
Happy Easter. Did you have a happy Easter?
Yes, I did. I had a very happy Easter. I spent it with my wife's family, and then after that, we spent it with some really good friends of ours.
Good. One other question. Now, the Islanders did something that hasn't been done in 25 years.
Yeah, win a playoff series.
It's been a very long time. Even the Knicks have won more playoffs in the last 25 years than the Islanders.
Which is really saying something.
Exactly. So getting Lou
Lamoriello was such a great start for them for this past regular season that all he could do was give Islander fans hope. And it wasn't just Lamoriello. It was the play of a lot of the stars on their team. Of course, Matthew Barzal has been the shining star for the majority of the season. He's the defending rookie of the year. And what about the play of Robin Lehner on goal? I mean, he was just lights out. He gave up just one goal each of the last 3 games of that 4-game sweep that took place. The only thing I worry about is whether the Islanders are going to be really rusty once they know who their next round opponent is going to be.
Oh, well, the other team beat up. That's another thing, too, because you could have, some teams are used to playing every day or every other day.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have people that have nagging injuries, that helps the people that have the nagging injuries, but it doesn't help the team sometimes because, like you said, it slows the pace down for the other team. So who knows which Islander team you're going to get.
Yeah, that's the $64,000 question that we have to answer somewhere down the road.
What are the chances of them surpassing, because they were going, some sports personality was going on about, well, what happens if they beat, who's in the playoffs now again? Now, let's talk about who's in the playoffs now.
Well, the only other series that are going on in the Eastern Conference are Toronto against Boston, which is now going to have a 7th game, I think, on Wednesday. And then there's Washington against Carolina, which, if I'm not mistaken, resumes tonight. And if Washington wins, then they get to play the Islanders in the next round.
Now, isn't one of them used to be an ex-Islander?
The Capitals have a couple of former New York stars on their
but
roster.
There was one that they booed the heck out of profusely.
Mm-hmm. You're probably thinking of John Tavares, who's on Toronto.
John Tavares. I could imagine them beating John Tavares' team.
Well, they would need for that to happen in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's if Toronto can win Game 7 in Boston, and then surpass their next round opponent. And the Islanders would have to get past Washington in order for that to happen. But that would probably be the most dramatic playoff series that the Islanders would have, going up against their former captain and their longtime star for the right to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. First things first, though. Toronto's going to win a Game 7. I think it's either tomorrow. Yep, it's tomorrow. The Bruins play the Maple Leafs tomorrow in Beantown.
But, so far, when is the draft for the hockey? When is the draft for hockey?
Same time as the NBA. It's in June. And we just found out that the Devils already have the first pick in the draft, and the Rangers are going to pick second.
Now, who is out there that you know of that's worth getting picked? Or should they trade down and get more players?
Don't be surprised if you see the Devils maybe trade down if they're not happy with the crop of young players that are going to be coming out next month. Because if they are, then they might trade down to try and get either some players, some veteran players, or maybe some lower round draft picks.
Are they that bad, the people that are coming out?
We're not really sure, to be honest with you. Keep in mind, we're getting a whole bunch of kids from overseas as well as from North America. So we'd have to see exactly what the roster of prospects looks like before anything else.
So right now, that you know of, who would the Islanders go for? Who do you think the Rangers and the Devils would go for?
If I'm the Devils, I get myself a big-time scoring machine because that's exactly who they need right now. They really need a frontline scorer. If I'm the Rangers, get somebody who can do some work on the power play. Get somebody who can convert on the power play. Get some muscle up on the front line. And while they're at it, see if they can probably get themselves another winger who can really pick up the scoring slack.
Well, I can say this much. The Rangers GM is about to go very soon, according to what I read.
Yep. Supposedly, Glenn Sather is going to resign so he can take an advisory role.
That's a good thing.
Well, if I'm Glenn Sather, I would try and advise James Dolan to, one, do something about the Knicks, first of all, and second of all, advise him to maybe step away from Madison Square Garden for a while.
Well, I can say this much, and this will probably make your hat flip. I was reading that the former NBA Bud Selig, is it? The former head of the NBA?
The former head of, you mean David Stern?
Yeah, David Stern. He was talking about how Dolan's doing a great job, and I'm going, what?
Who is he referring to exactly? Is he referring to James Dolan, or is he referring to somebody else?
He's trying to do his best to bring in a great team all these years, and I'm going, that's not true. All he's been doing is ruining the team, and I don't know where David Stern is coming from when it comes to this nonsense, that he's trying to win. How is he trying to win? He keeps on ruining the team. And then he's going and saying that that's not true, that teams don't want to come here because of him. That's not true either. Players don't want to come because of him. But it's true what he said. It's up to Scott Perry and Mills to, try to persuade these guys to say, you know what, it's a different atmosphere now. He's not in it anymore. Which he really isn't. He hasn't touched the team in a very long time. Except for the outside stupidity that he does when he came to Charles Oakley and that fan that said, get rid of sell the team, and he was banned for life, which is so ridiculous. I would take that to court if I was that fan, because when you're paying a ticket, you should be able to say what you want. And that wasn't nasty or anything of that nature. Just James Dolan is a piece of paper. But, and that's where I agree with you when it comes to that. Now,
I am going to reserve judgment on that last part until I actually see some real results. Because as of right now, I still see him as the same slime that has presided over the last 18 years of complete incompetence.
But when Phil Jackson took over, he didn't do anything. He didn't step in there like he did with Walsh and all them other guys.
Which only exacerbated the problem.
In there, he stepped in because he wanted Carmelo Anthony. But after that, Phil Jackson says, you want me, you either give me full autonomy or I don't do this. And James Dolan, you never heard from him. You heard him play guitar, that he was in a band, you heard him do this, but you never heard him say, I want this player and this is my team and I'm going to do what I want. You never heard that, and you're still not hearing it.
Which only exacerbates the problem of complete incompetence that this franchise is going through over and over and over again. When he is putting his hands on the team, the incompetence is obvious. And when he's not, and he's spending time with that stupid rock band of his, trying to fulfill some sham of a fantasy of him being a musician, that's even making the incompetence even worse.
You know what? When you have money like that, you can do whatever the heck you want. You may think it's a sham, but he's got the money to do it. Unlike me and you, who doesn't have that sham to be able to do things like that. But
there are certain musicians out there, starving artists are what they're usually referred to, that don't really need that much cash to try and make a dream alive. All they need to do is either play a club or, as a last resort, play on a street corner or maybe even play in the subway system or the ferry.
But the musicians that
some of the best ones do that.
But you have to remember something. The musicians that are playing in clubs and in the subway and all that, not only are they trying to make ends meet, but they're trying to become popular. So they can become rich, so they can get a contract. You have to remember that they're not just playing out there just for fun. The majority of those people are not playing out there, let me go out there and play for fun today. No. They're playing to make money and to get started. That's why you see all these stupid shows that are popping up out of nowhere, which half of them, the majority of them, make no sense. But going back to hockey, do you see any? I mean, who's in third right now? Third, who's picking third and who's picking fourth?
Let me see if I can check out the latest NHL draft standings. The Devils are picking first. The Rangers are picking second. And then after that, let me see here. For the record, I've been looking over the list of prospects that are eligible for this year's draft. Supposedly, there's a kid who plays for Team USA, Jack Hughes, who may be considered the first overall pick of the draft. Jack Hughes, by the way, is projected to be the first overall pick, and he's a center. He's a 17-year-old center, and he's currently playing for Team USA at the Under-18 World Championships in Sweden. He just scored 7 points in a recent game for the Americans, a victory over Slovakia. So,
here's a good question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the youngest hockey player to ever play hockey?
The youngest hockey player to ever play hockey?
To make it into the NHL?
My guess would be Wayne Gretzky. That would be my guess because he started out when he was 17.
So he played in the NHL when he was 17.
Mm-hmm. Made his NHL debut at 17.
No, that's why they call him the Great One.
Yep. Now, let me see if I can get the entire order of the draft here for you. As far as this, here we are. As far as the whole first round, it's going to be the Devils, the Rangers, then the Chicago Blackhawks, then it's Colorado, Los Angeles, Detroit, Buffalo, Edmonton. Then there's Anaheim, which has 2 picks in the draft, number 9 and number 20. Then
Who
there's
do you think they should go for?
the Anaheim Ducks.
All of them. So
Well,
far, the third team that you mentioned, because you said the Devils should go for
Jack Hughes.
Jack Hughes. The Rangers should go for a scorer, correct?
Yep, and preferably a winger. And right now, there's this one kid who plays for his junior team, I think in Finland. Capo Kakko is his name. He's 6'2", 194 pounds, and he plays for TPS, which is one of Finland's club teams. And rounding out, by the way, the Rangers actually have 2 number 1 draft picks. They have the 2nd overall pick, and they also have the 22nd overall pick.
So you think they'll pick a winger?
If they really want to be able to improve, they should be able to get a winger. And it's also suggesting that they get themselves a defenseman. And by the way,
do they need more? Do they need more defensemen, or do they need more scorers?
At this rate, they're going to have to get themselves some defensemen because this past season, they really regressed defensively, especially when it came to turning the puck over. That was another thing. They committed a lot of unforced errors during games this season, so they're going to have to get somebody disciplined with the puck, someone who could be a real handler of the puck, and get themselves a winger as well. And rounding out the first round, let's see here. Vancouver's picking 10th, and then in order, it's Philly, Minnesota, Florida, Arizona, Montreal, Colorado, the Vegas Golden Knights, Dallas, Ottawa. Anaheim has a 2nd pick, like I mentioned. Then there's Carolina. Then I mentioned the Rangers. Then after that, Pittsburgh, Nashville, LA has a 2nd pick. Then there's the Islanders, then Tampa. Buffalo has a 2nd pick as well. Then there's Washington, Boston, and Calgary to round out the top 31 teams.
Now, do you think that the majority of the teams that you mentioned, do they need more offense or defense?
I would say that probably the top 10 would definitely need more scorers, if anything else. I mean, the Devils, it's not like they're totally devoid of playmakers. I mean, they do have Nico Hischier, who they drafted number 1 a couple of years ago, and he had a bit of a sophomore slump this year. But other than that, they're going to have to get somebody who they can try and team up with Hischier and also Taylor Hall, who had a really solid season for them, in spite of the fact that the Devils really, really struggled at times this year.
I see. Now, switching gears, what do you think of basketball? What do you think of the basketball playoffs, and what do you think of the fines that they're giving these basketball players?
The fines, you mean? Well, you're probably referring to what happened between Jared Dudley and Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler. Jared Dudley is a 10-year veteran who, quite frankly, should have known better. He should know than to let a 20-some-odd-year-old kid named Ben Simmons try and get in his head, especially when it was Dudley himself who opened his mouth by talking about Simmons' half-court game, which so far has not looked too bad in this series against the Nets. So Jared Dudley deserved the fine that he got. Jimmy Butler, too. If anything, the other fine that wound up taking place, which was the Nets boss, Sean Marks, barging into the referee's locker room for some strange reason. That was another justifiable offense that took place. As far as the playoffs themselves, it surprised me a little bit to see Boston make quick work of Indiana the way they did. I thought that the series would go a little bit longer. But Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward both had terrific series. Jaylen Brown was outstanding. Now it's just a matter of who they're going to play next. Is it going to be Milwaukee, which leads 3-0 over Detroit? At this rate, Milwaukee has not been challenged for the entire series. I think the Bucks make quick work of the Pistons in Game 4. So I would see a Boston versus Milwaukee Eastern Conference semifinal right now. And I'll tell you this.
Who wins that?
What's that?
And who wins that?
Who wins that? Honestly, that first series taught me one thing. If Victor Oladipo wasn't hurt, the Pacers extend that to a 7th game. But now the Celtics might be going up against the Bucks. If the Bucks had Malcolm Brogdon 100% healthy, I think Milwaukee wins this series. But because Brogdon is hurt and gone for the rest of the year, I think there's a very, very strong chance that Boston wins this series in probably 6 games and goes to the Eastern Conference Finals. In fact,
what about the Sixers? The Sixers and the Nets. How are they doing?
The Nets had a golden opportunity to tie this series and send it to a 6th game in Game 4, but just really, really poor defensive assignments led to Mike Scott making the game-winning 3, and I think Philly's going to wrap it up in Game 5. And at this rate, it would be Philly versus, I think, Toronto in the second round. Toronto has pretty much had their way with Orlando in 2 out of the 3 games. So I think Toronto wins that series in 5. So this would set up a rather interesting Eastern Conference semifinals. As far as what's going on out west,
who would you pick?
My pick to come out of the East, Boston looks really good. And I don't believe in Toronto.
You think Boston can beat the Sixers?
I really think Boston not only can beat the Sixers, I think they can beat the Raptors, and I think that they can beat the Bucks as well. I think the Celtics are a little bit more athletic. They've got the better point guard, and also I think they have the better shooter. Gordon Hayward is a lot better shooter than people give him credit for.
Interesting. And in the West?
In the West, Golden State has, except for Game 2 where they completely self-destructed, blowing that 31-point lead, Golden State has had very little trouble with the Los Angeles Clippers, and I think that the Warriors wrap it up in that fifth game. Houston going up against Utah has been a bit of a surprise. I think Utah's poor execution has really, really cost them, and that's why the Rockets have a 3-0 lead in the series. And I think Denver is having a lot more problems with San Antonio than they really should. The Spurs have been so well coached in this series, and also DeMar DeRozan has been just wonderful overall. There's also been the issue of let's check out that other series that's taking place right now. Out west, we mentioned Warriors Clippers, we mentioned Rockets Jazz, we mentioned the Trailblazers against Oklahoma City. Right now, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum have been the two best players in this entire series. And because of that, Portland has a 3-1 lead. There's a strong possibility that Portland wraps this up in Game 5 tomorrow night. But that means the Blazers would have to play the Warriors, and I think the Warriors make quick work of the Blazers, at least in 5 games.
You know, I'm reading Wolves to meet with Chauncey Billups.
For the front office job, yeah. Make him the president of basketball operations.
Now, do you think this would be a good fit? Rick Pitino going to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
All I can say about that is good luck. I mean, it's not like Pitino suddenly forgot how to coach. Rick Pitino has always been a wonderful, wonderful head coach. He's a brilliant head coach. It's just a matter of what he's going to have to work with. And at age 65, does he really need more gray hairs than he already has right now, coaching a Cavalier team that's just plain awful?
Well, he can't coach college anymore because of what happened. So the only thing he could do is either coach high school or the pros. And I would go for any pro team that's willing to take a chance on me.
If he were to return, it would have to be with somebody that's got a chance to win. Rick Pitino has zero chance of doing anything with the Cavaliers right now. He'll be lucky if he reaches 30 wins this next season.
He does bring out the best in people, though. He does know how to do that.
He also has a really fiery temper, which has been very well chronicled. Do you really think that any of those veteran players on the Cavaliers are going to put up with his antics on the sideline? I don't think so.
If they're winning or if it makes sense, I think they do put up with it up to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
Because people will have a tendency, they're willing to hear you out. And I don't think he's going to talk all that tough talk to pro players. Now, what he'll probably do is try to get rid of the old guys and just try to get new guys and rebuild from scratch, because that's what he knows how to do. Get young guys to play like he was in Kentucky or whatever.
Hector, unfortunately, you kind of sort of broke up over the phone. I think you might have a little.
No, I'm saying that Pitino would scratch every. He probably would ask the GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers to trade all them veterans and try to get young guys in there, so that because he does well with the younger players. If he coaches college players, he can do wonders with with young guys that are willing to listen. Think of him as a Buck Showalter. He brings out the best in people.
Right.
Now, how long does he stay on the team? That's a whole different ballgame, because Pitino never stays longer than 3 years.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think he lasts 5 minutes in Cleveland.
And Jrue Holiday, Bulls, Magics have interest in him.
You mean Drew Holiday?
Yeah, Jrue Holiday.
Drew Holiday is the point guard from the New Orleans Hornets. A rather solid point guard, if you ask me. Started his career in Philly, got traded to New Orleans, and he's had a very productive career in the NBA.
Phoenix Suns prefer Jay Morant over Zion Williamson.
That's no surprise. You know why? Because they want someone to team up with Devin Booker in the backcourt, and I think those two would be very, very explosive together.
You know,
And if the Suns don't want him, then whoever, if in the event that they get that first overall pick, the Suns, maybe they could trade down to see if they can get Jay Morant. Because at this rate, Zion Williamson is the number 1 overall pick.
for some teams, it doesn't seem for the Phoenix Suns.
Yep.
And Ty Lue is at meeting with Jenny Buss.
Yeah. Supposedly he's meeting for the Laker job. Which kind of makes sense. He has a history with LeBron. Plus, he started his playing career with the Lakers. And I think he won a couple of championships with the Lakers, too.
Yeah, Dwight Howard opts into the $5.6 million for the Washington Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's going to be, if you know, Richard Jefferson
Right.
believes that KD will pick New York Knicks. That he will go to New York Knicks. I mean, if you read, now I'm not saying it's right or wrong. The rumors are that there's a lot of writers and players that are saying that this guy is going to go to New York Knicks.
Oh,
Now,
brother.
I'm not saying that they're right. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm going by the rumors. That's what it is. It's just a rumor. Until I see it on pen and paper, that's the only time I'm going to believe it. When he comes out of his mouth saying that I want to play for the New York Knicks and he signs with them, then I'll believe it. Until that time, it's just a rumor. There's nothing to scream or yell about and so forth. Because remember, these rumors are going to be filling up like crazy the closer you get to trading.
You know, if he's going to the Knicks like these so-called experts have said, then why did he write a column on the Players Tribune saying that he was going to return to the Warriors next year?
You know what? Just probably to get the monkey off the back. Because you know what it's like.
Then if he's doing that, then he's being very, very disingenuous. Because usually athletes go on the Players Tribune and they become very, very truthful about their feelings on any subject.
Kyrie Irving said he first he said he wants to stay with the Celtics. Then he said he wants to play for the New York Knicks.
He doesn't know what he wants.
So exactly. So you can't go by that. You gotta go by, at the end of the day, where they're gonna play. You can't go by what they say sometimes. You gotta go by, at the end of the day, pen on paper, where they're gonna be at. Because these are just rumors. Because I mean, like I said before, there's a lot of riders from New York, and there's a lot of players that haven't played, that are not, they're former Knicks. They're saying that they got a good chance of landing KD. Now,
I'm going to tell you right now, they have no chance of landing that star.
If they do, that's great. If they don't, then it's just a rumor. Like I said, it's just a rumor. It's nothing to yell, scream, or shout about because it's just a rumor. You're not going to go and say, you're not yelling and screaming about, Jenny Buss and Tyronn Lue getting together. Well, so why scream and yell about KD going to New York? No, you can't. You know.
Maybe I should scream about Jeannie Buss, period, because Jeannie Buss has done nothing but turn the Lakers franchise, a once proud franchise, into a complete and utter dumpster fire. This never would be going on if Dr. Jerry Buss were still running the Lakers. But because he passed away a few years ago and passed the franchise down to his kids, they have turned into not necessarily a laughingstock, but a place where certain major superstars would keep them at arm's length, unless their name was LeBron James.
You know, and I still say the same thing about LeBron James. LeBron James can be a great player, but sometimes he acts as if he's GM, coach, and so on. I don't know what type of coach he needs because you can't tell him anything.
Maybe he should just be player coach. We haven't had that in 40 years.
The last player coach was Chris Dudley. No, not Chris Dudley. I forgot his name. He came out of retirement for one game, and he was a player coach for one game. He played one game. He did horrible. Now Kyrie wants to be on the West Coast. See, this is what I'm saying. They're saying Griffin thinks AD could stay with the Pelicans. Mind you, he's saying that he wants to leave. Now people are saying that he wants to stay. I mean, come on.
These are
all rumors.
I just love how these guys waffle back and forth about their feelings of where to go. The next thing you know, Kyrie Irving is going to want to go back to Duke University.
Well, but the thing is, that's what makes newspapers. That's what makes newspapers. I mean, Monty Williams, concerns of Ty Lue, LeBron James pairing. He's got concerns.
Yeah, wow. Because they had a really bad falling out a few years ago.
And again, you just have it. Could Boogie stay with the Warriors, or do you see him leaving?
Could he stay with the Warriors?
DeMarcus Cousins.
The way his season ended with that injury of his, he would probably want a second chance at winning a ring with the Warriors next year, because in the event that the Warriors win the title and he doesn't play, he's going to feel like he did not earn it. He wants to earn his ring.
I don't blame him. I mean, people always say you should get the team that you should play for. You should try to get the ring, but sometimes you have to go to another team to get the damn ring. Like Blake Griffin, for instance. Would you want to stay on Detroit if you know you're not going to get a ring?
Nope. The Pistons are very difficult work in progress right now. Quite frankly, they were lucky to make the playoffs this year.
Another one, Lakers to me with Juwan Howard.
Juwan Howard. There's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Such a good player when he played all those years ago. And he's paid a lot of dues as an assistant coach. I think Juwan Howard would make a pretty good head coach someplace.
Yeah, and the thing was that if Luke Walton was such a bad coach, how come he got picked up so fast by the Kings?
Because the Kings were two reasons. One, the Kings want to stick it to the Lakers, and two, the Kings are desperate to try and get anything to anyone to try and get that job. Let me tell you, Sacramento is not a particularly glamorous place to either play or coach. There's zero history of winning. They've had players go in and out of the lineup because of the complete incompetence that whatever management they've had in the past has gone through. Not only that, the city of Sacramento itself not necessarily a haven for basketball. And there was a time when Sacramento was a hot ticket, not just during the Chris Webber days, but in the very beginning when they moved to California from Kansas City over 30 years ago. They would sell out every single home game, whether they were good or bad. But now, even with the new arena that they're in, they're still having problems attracting fans to games. And even with this rebuild that they have going, with all of these young players, which are decent players. I mean, it's not like they have any Tom, Dick, and Harry, as Donnie Walsh would say, on their roster. I mean, they've got Willie Cauley-Stein and, let's see, I think Justin Jackson as well. Buddy Held, who's a really good shooter. And yet somehow they still can't put it together. Part of it is because the Warriors are in the same division, and so are the Lakers, and so are the Clippers. The other part of it is just their draft history has just been horrendous.
As a come, I can never understand why certain players want to go to the West, and that's one of the toughest divisions. Before it used to be the Eastern Division, that used to be the toughest division.
You mean
now,
the Eastern Conference?
The Western Division.
You mean the Eastern and Western Conference?
Exactly, that's what I mean. Excuse me, but it's the truth. You know,
yeah.
You either want to play for the West, which is tough now. All of a sudden, they got great teams now over there, and the Eastern Division's weak. It's very weak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't care if, you know, whatever comes out of there, but it's still a weak division because look at the stats like you like to do. But I found that Adam Silver, he says, we disfavor trade demands after AD request. And I'm going, why is he disfavored?
You know why? Because there's too much movement between players going from one team to another. That's why. He wants to see some players establish some roots in one city and one franchise.
Yes, but here's the deal. If you want that to happen, you got to help the team build a good team. Okay, let's go, for example, the New York Knicks. Okay, Mr. Silver, why don't you say that about the New York Knicks? That's what I'm talking about. If he wanted to do something so badly about these guys getting franchise players, and then you have to build players around players. You can't just keep on having one guy on the same team and then go, okay, don't worry, we're going to help you now. We're going to help you. And he's not supposed to be helping unless the team's really screwing up and there's some kind of problem. But like they did with the Nets. The Nets was so bad that the league, I think, the league had to go and intervene? Am I right about that?
If they did, then I'd never heard anything about it.
Or was it one team? I know in baseball they did it, but I'm talking about in basketball. Was there ever a time that there was the team was so badly run that the team the basketball organization had to take over and then put him in the right direction? I think I remember one time it happened.
Well, I know that's happened in baseball twice. Major League Baseball actually took over the Montreal Expos when they were going through their financial troubles. And I think the second time was when, or one of the other times was when the league suspended Mr. Steinbrenner for 2 years and appointed Robert Niederlander to be the managing general partner. And that's when the franchise turned around their fortunes for good. In football, the one situation that I know about was what happened with the Giants when the league appointed George Young as the Giants general manager. And since then, that franchise did a complete 180 and became a contender within 2 years. And then there was the hiring of Bill Parcells and the drafting of Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms and Carl Banks and so many great young players that they had that it translated into a pair of Super Bowls.
Now, I understand what he's trying to do, but if he doesn't want super teams, he's got to somehow make the team so that they could become, every one of them can become competitive. Right now, if you think about it, a handful, right away you think of the Warriors going in right away. They're automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Who's automatic in your?
You mean as an automatic contender?
Yeah, automatic contenders, right off the top of your head. The Warriors, one of them.
The Warriors, the Houston Rockets.
The Rockets are another.
The San Antonio Spurs, who've made the playoffs every single year for 22 years. And all of that has happened with Greg Popovich as the head coach. And at least 3 superstars. He had the Admiral first, then he had Tim Duncan, then Manu Ginobili, then Tony Parker. And what did that turn into? 5 titles. There is also,
but they didn't trade for them. They came through the system.
They drafted all them. 4 of those guys, and after that they wound up bringing in Kawhi Leonard, who lasted 6 years. He was drafted. Then there was also guys like Marco Bellinelli, and of course Boris Diaw. And so many other veterans that they wound up plucking from the scrap heap that they were turned into bid players for really, really good championship teams. Robert Horry was another one. Horry wound up winning 2 titles with the Rockets, 3 titles with the Lakers. Then he signed with the Spurs, won another 2 titles with them.
And here's the thing, football tries to not have super teams either. They don't want dynasty teams anymore.
It's hard to build a dynasty team in the NFL because the salary cap is just so tight in that sport that it's hard to keep at least 2 superstar players together instead of just 1.
Exactly. And, I kind of like the, at least once in a while having that team, like the way that the Giants had it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets, even though they never won the Super Bowl except for 1969 with Joe Namath,
mm-hmm.
but they had a group of people that they had the Green Monster. I mean, you had the 49ers, which was a dynasty, Cowboys, Steelers, 49ers, the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but with the Patriots is a little different because they don't have superstars. They just have...
After Tom Brady, no, there are no superstars on that team.
Exactly.
And the second superstar that they had, Rob Gronkowski, retired.
Exactly. But back then, when you actually had look at the dynasty that you had: Mean Joe Green, Tony Dorsett,
Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm talking about if you just go by Dallas for a moment, you had
Tony Dorsett, Danny White.
You had Mean Joe, not Mean Joe Green.
Too Tall Jones.
Too Tall Jones, Billy White Shoes Johnson.
Randy White also.
Randy White.
Drew Pearson.
I mean, that Tony Dorsett, good God. I mean, that's a dynasty team. You don't have those teams, and that's what football is trying to avoid. That's why they're so hard. Now, when it comes to basketball, you can't do that with basketball because there's not that many players out there unless you draft very, very well, and even that's a hit or a miss.
And even if they do draft well, that process has to take place over several years in order to put together a really competitive team.
Exactly, and by the time you draft, let's say, two other good guys, the first guy that you draft could be gone because he's got a 3-year contract. It's a 3-year automatic contract for a rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to build a dynasty team. So now when a player wants to play, let's say, with the Warriors, if they got enough cap, he's saying you shouldn't do that. But it's business.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you stick? If you really help the other teams that can't get out of the bottom basement, like New York, do something about those teams. What do you do? What is? I would love to find out what is his idea on trying to strengthen the teams that are always in the bottom of the basement. They never come up with ideas. They always come up with, like I had an idea with the awards, but nobody came to me, even though they blamed me, even though that's not true either. But they should have come up to me. Well, you know how they say, if you like to put the blame on someone, do you have any advice on how to fix it? Yes, I had an idea to fix it. Does he have anything to be able to fix these things? He's complaining about, he's trying to stop AD from going and to have super teams. So then how do you fix the problem of teams being at the bottom of the basement and they can't get out of there? He has no clue.
He has no clue because he's always trying to dance around the question, or he's not really familiar with every single player in this league to try and put together a competent answer.
I think he's got to have good people around him. Unless the people around him that are suggesting these things are somewhat stupid.
Tell you what, though, I have a theory as to why he might want to throw a bone to the Kings, because the Kings have the longest playoff drought right now in the league, the longest current playoff drought. 13 years without a single playoff game in Sacramento.
The New York Knicks, for God's sakes, they won the playoffs in 2001 with what's his name, Mike Whitson. But still, this is a team that's in New York that gets a lot of publicity. That's a team that you should be helping a little more. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't help the other teams, but this is a major market. You should help them too. And I'm still trying to wonder how Patrick Ewing was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a setup. That's the big controversy. And
that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Seriously. Get over it. It was over 30 years ago.
And still they talk about it. That's how come they brought in Patrick Ewing to be, to see if they could get Zion Williamson. Now, do you think he would be a good fit with the Knicks? Because some people say no, he wouldn't.
Who?
Oh, I forgot this guy's name. There was one person that said that he wouldn't be fit well with the New York Knicks because of certain things, and I'm going, you're ridiculous. And I'm going, well, if they do get him, do you think people would want to play with him? Do you think veteran players want to play with him? Or do you think they would shy away from him and go, okay, let's see what the kid can do, and then hopefully then we'll play?
But who are you talking about, though?
Zion Williamson.
First off, just in case the Knicks win the first overall pick in the draft, they should concentrate all of their attention on Zion Williamson. That kid could probably mean an extra 15 to 20 wins per season if he were to suit up in a New York uniform.
But can it bring in players? Can he attract?
Well, not right
players
now.
who want to play with him?
Not right now. I mean, he would have to help turn the franchise around and turn them into a contender in order to attract some players to suit up with him.
But, let's switch gears for a moment because the Yankees are finally on and off. They beat Boston.
Yeah.
But they've lost a couple of players. They lost Aaron Judge.
Yeah, unfortunately, Aaron Judge is on the disabled list, and he is now the latest in a long line of players that have made the disabled list. I'm trying to.
They let go.
Yeah, Gio Gonzalez, he was stuck down in the minor leagues, so he decided he wanted out, so he's going to head on out of there. And for the record, the Yankees now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players on the disabled list.
My God. And also the Mets. The Mets, they're
coming off a really disappointing road trip, if you ask me. They could only split 4 games with the Braves, then lost 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals this past weekend, and before that, the Philadelphia Phillies. Now,
are these the true Mets that we were expecting, or is this something that's supposed to be a surprise?
I would say that this is right in tune with where the Mets should be right now. I didn't think that they were going to be a major contender, but at the same time, I didn't think they were going to be terrible either. And
So,
right now they're in a rain
at the
delay
pace.
with the yeah, exactly right. So right now they're in a rain delay with the Phillies. So
And the Yankees went into overtime and they won with the.
that was a close call against the team that they against Kansas City, I should say. That was a close call because the Yankees blew a 5-0 lead and then fell behind. Then it took big hits from Gio Urshela and then the game winner from I think it was Brett Gardner yesterday to win it.
Now, here's the thing. Do you regret not signing Machado
No.
and the other guy?
The Yankees had no desire to pay all that money to Manny Machado or Bryce Harper. No.
Look how they're doing badly. Look how they're dropping like flies.
I also look at what they're doing with their new teams. The Phillies right now are barely 3 games above 500, and the Padres are 1 game above 500.
And those pitchers, are they still available?
If you're talking about Dallas Keuchel and the closer,
Yeah.
they're definitely still available.
And the Yankees still don't go after him. Damn.
That's because they're still waiting for their other guy to make their way back from the disabled list, which is Luis Severino.
Yeah, but wouldn't you want the closer at least?
The Yankees already have a closer. It's Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah, but...
And Craig Kimbrell is not going to be a setup man. Craig Kimbrell only wants to be a closer. It's not going to be with the Yankees. Sorry. Anyway, I also want to mention that we should say congratulations to the University of Virginia for winning the NCAA basketball title a couple of weeks ago. They wound up going overtime and beating Texas Tech. And also congratulations go out to Notre Dame for winning the women's championship.
Congratulations.
Correction, it was Texas A&M. Texas A&M won the women's national title.
Well, let's say goodbye.
All right, for everyone here, I'm Jamie.
I'm Hector.
Good night, everyone.
Night.